and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. With the 14-day ceasefire set to expire soon, U.S. President Donald Trump says the chances of extending it beyond Wednesday evening are very small. He offered mixed messages, saying he was in no rush to end the conflict, but also expressing confidence that further negotiations with Iran will soon take place in Pakistan. Meanwhile, Iran has yet to make a final decision on whether to take part in a new round of peace talks with the U.S. and Pakistan. But a senior Iranian official has reportedly said that discussions are being considered to help end a U.S. blockade of Iranian ports, a key obstacle to renewed negotiations. South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung met with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and agreed to strengthen cooperation on stable supply of energy resources and naphtha amid increasing global uncertainties. Conflicting signals from both Washington and Tehran are casting doubt over last-ditch diplomatic efforts to avert a wider conflict as the deadline for the ceasefire approaches. Our Moon Hye-ryun starts us off.
With the two-week ceasefire between the United States and Iran set to expire Wednesday evening, diplomatic hopes are pinned on a second round of peace talks in Islamabad, Pakistan, seen by many as the final opportunity to prevent a return to a full-scale war. Throughout Monday, however, U.S. President Donald Trump delivered a series of conflicting updates on the talks. In an interview with the New York Post, he claimed Vice President J.D. Vance was already on his way to Pakistan, but U.S. officials later clarified that Vance remained in Washington and is expected to depart Tuesday. Speaking to Bloomberg News, Trump also hardened his stance, saying the chances of extending the ceasefire beyond Wednesday evening are very small. While expressing optimism on social media that a deal could come quickly, he warned that lots of bombs would follow if no agreement is reached. At the center of the standoff is the Strait of Hormuz. Tensions peaked Sunday when the U.S. Navy seized the Tusker, an Iranian cargo ship attempting to evade the blockade. By Monday, the U.S. military confirmed it had turned back 27 vessels bound for Iranian ports. The disruption has pushed Brent crude towards $100 a barrel, a concern Trump brushed aside, insisting prices would come roaring down if Iran complies. As the deadline approaches, Washington says its blockade will remain in place until a deal is reached, while Iran has warned it could retaliate over the ship seizure. With more than 3,000 reported casualties in Iran and fighting still active in Lebanon, the Islamabad talks remain a narrow and rapidly closing window for peace. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
Iran is considering whether to join a new round of peace talks with the United States and Pakistan as a fragile ceasefire nears its expiration. But Tehran says ongoing U.S. violations and deep mistrust remain major obstacles to returning to negotiations. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Iran is weighing whether to take part in a new round of peace talks with the United States and Pakistan as diplomatic efforts intensify to resolve the ongoing conflict and ease tensions in global energy markets. A senior Iranian official told Reuters on Monday that discussions are being considered following steps by Islamabad to help end a U.S. blockade of Iranian ports, a key obstacle to renewed negotiations. However, Tehran has yet to make a final decision. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said continued U.S. ceasefire violations remain a major barrier to moving forward with diplomacy. In a phone call with his Pakistani counterpart on Monday, Araghchi emphasized that Iran is still reviewing its options and has not determined its next steps. The uncertainty comes as a fragile two-week ceasefire in a conflict that has killed thousands and disrupted the global economy is set to expire later this week. At the same time, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is expected to travel to Islamabad on Tuesday, according to U.S. officials, signaling Washington's intent to keep negotiations on track. While Iran has not publicly committed to attending the talks, two senior Iranian officials indicated that Parliamentary Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf would participate if Vance is present, suggesting a possible pathway for renewed engagement. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian underscored the deep mistrust between Tehran and Washington, warning that meaningful dialogue depends on honoring commitments. In a social media post on Monday, he said Iran remains wary of what he described as contradictory signals from U.S. officials, adding that Iranians would not yield to pressure as talks approach. However, the Iranian president earlier this month signaled in an open letter that he is open to swiftly pursuing a diplomatic resolution, stressing that the outcome will shape the future for generations to come. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Over in New Delhi, President Lee Jae-myung has met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and discussed cooperation on supplies of energy resources and naphtha amid increasing global uncertainties. Our Yoon Jung-min is traveling with the president and files his report from New Delhi.
The South Korean first couple were given a grand welcome by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Draupadi Murmu. South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung and his Indian counterpart Modi stressed the importance of bilateral cooperation during these turbulent times.
불확실성의 시대 속에서 대한민국과 인도가 상호 성장과 혁신을 촉진하는 최적의 전방위적 협력 파트너가 될 수 있다는 데 서로 공감하였습니다.
Our two countries share common visions in the Indo-Pacific region. Your visit, Mr. President, has elevated our trusted bilateral partnership to one that looks toward the future.
The leaders also exchanged views on regional and global peace amid the current conflict in the Middle East.
우리는 최근 중동 정세에 대한 의견을 교환하며 중동 지역의 안정과 평화 회복이 세계 안보와 경제에 매우 중요하다는 데 공감하였습니다.
Amid heightened international tensions, South Korea and India are sending a concerted message of peace and stability.
Monday's summit yielded key deliverables such as strengthening cooperation on a stable supply of energy resources and naphtha. The leaders agreed to create the Korea-India Industrial Cooperation Committee for cooperation on strategic sectors such as critical minerals and nuclear energy. Also, the two countries plan to upgrade their bilateral economic agreement called CEPA and double their annual trade volume to $50 billion by 2030. Both plan to work together on a host of other areas.
디지털 브릿지 프레임워크를 통해 인공지능 인재 강국인 인도와 세계적 수준의 인공지능 인프라를 갖춘 대한민국 간의 인공지능 디지털 협력 기반을 구축해 나갈 것입니다.
From encouraging exchanges between young talents to cooperation in shipbuilding, environment, and energy, we will expand opportunities to cooperate in a range of fields.
A Mumbai Korea Center will be established to foster cultural exchanges. The talks came at a critical time as South Korea tries to expand its diplomatic horizon to the global south. President Lee's next stop is Vietnam, where he will be sitting down with the nation's top leader. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, New Delhi.
So boosting economic cooperation was a key focus of yesterday's summit between President Lee Jae-myung and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That focus continued later in the day with a series of business events. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
President Lee Jae-myung, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and Samsung Electronics Chairman Lee Jae-yong all in one frame. The selfie taken with the Galaxy Z Flip 7 made at Samsung's Noida factory in India has drawn attention as a snapshot of the growing economic partnership between South Korea and India. A business delegation of around 200 people accompanied President Lee's state visit to India. The strong focus on business even reshaped diplomatic protocol.
The original plan was to hold the Korea-India Business Dialogue ahead of the Korea-India Business Forum. But Prime Minister Modi proposed that business leaders join his lunch with President Xi, and we accepted.
According to the policy chief, talks focused on broadening cooperation beyond traditional sectors such as automobiles and electronics into other industries like shipbuilding and steel. President Lee reinforced that message later in the day at the Korea-India Business Forum.
세계적 수준인 인도의 인공지능 소프트웨어 역량과 한국의 반도체, 배터리, 자동차 조선 등 제조 경쟁력이 결합되면 양국은 막대한 시너지를 낼 수 있을 것입니다.
Calling for a step up in economic cooperation between Seoul and New Delhi, Yi reiterated the goal of doubling bilateral trade to $50 billion a year by 2030. Annual trade between the two countries has hovered around $25 billion in recent years, a level the president said falls short given India's emergence as one of the world's largest economies. To that end, the two countries plan to resume the 12th round of negotiations next month to upgrade their comprehensive economic partnership agreement, aiming to reach a deal by the first half of 2027.
Addressing several non-tariff barriers, making it easier to do business between the two countries, easing the rules of origin, expanding market access, and opening up the doors in both countries.
A total of 20 memorandums of understanding were signed between businesses from the two countries at Monday's forum. One of the key deals involves HD Korea Shipbuilding and Offshore Engineering developing a new shipyard in India. 송유진, Arirang News.
And now for a closer look at the summit between South Korea's President Lee and India's Prime Minister Modi. We're joined today by Professor Shin Sang-yup, professor at the Graduate School of International Studies at Kyung-hee University. Professor Shin, thanks for coming on today.
Well, thanks for having me today.
So what do you make of yesterday's summit between President Lee and Prime Minister Modi?
I think it will be a kind of turning point or stepping stone for two countries to step up. I mean, the deepening and widening the economic relations between two countries. According to the report, it was already well known that the two leaders discussed about the various issues to step up the economic cooperative relations between two countries. And I think it will be a kind of some stepping stone, oriented to seek for the more productive and the more efficient economic cooperative relations between the two countries.
Right, and the Yi administration has been emphasizing global South diplomacy. Why is India such a key diplomatic partner for South Korea?
Well, actually, the India has a very big potential as a market. India has a 1.46 billion population, which is the largest in the world. At the same time, India is the great economic power, leads global production and the supply chain. So I think if we could have the step up the cooperative relations with India, we can have the a very big market, pioneer new market in the world, which is very important because considering the economic uncertainty, economic crisis caused by the war between Israel and the U.S. and Iran, and also the Ukraine and Russia war. Considering all of these, certainly for us to strengthen the cooperative relations with India, which is very important to pioneer new market, and it will be very, very beneficial for Korean economy and the Indian economy as well.
I see, and a large business delegation is accompanying President Lee on this trip, including the heads of companies like Samsung, LG, and Hyundai. And you just talked about India's population. What makes India such an attractive market for Korean firms, and what are these companies hoping to achieve through this visit?
Well, actually, in 2015, two countries signed the Strategic Economic Partnership. But since 2015, we cannot say that the relations between two countries could not be developed enough. So I think by having the more cooperative relations between two countries, certainly we can develop we can have the mutually beneficial economic relations. And as President already talked about, for example, we can have the cooperative relations in a very important and very various areas, such as shipbuilding industry, AI industry, and the energy areas and the defense areas. So certainly we can widening and deepening the cooperative relations between two countries by seeking for future-oriented economic relations between two countries.
Mm-hmm. Right, and President Lee Jae-myung's next stop will be Vietnam, where he'll be the first state guest under the country's new leadership. What does the timing of this visit signal, and what are President Lee's main objectives in talks with the Vietnamese leader?
Well, certainly, I think we can say that the President Lee's state visit to Vietnam is also seeking for economic relations, economic benefits through the strengthening economic ties with Vietnam. Well, in fact, the economic ties with Vietnam has developed very well over the last decades. Well, I did not say this one, but when I talked about the economic ties with India, well, only 600, 700 Korean companies entered in India, but about 10,000 Korean companies are operating inside the Vietnam. And so we can say that there are much, by having a future-oriented talks with the Vietnamese leaders, we can strengthen our corporate relations in new areas such as the nuclear energy and the supply chain and energy security. By having widening the corporate relations with Vietnam, certainly we can have more, and we can continuously have more economic the outcomes, achievements in the corporate relations with Vietnamese government.
Right, we'll have to see how the summit plays out in Vietnam. All right, Professor Shin, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
South Korea's newly appointed Bank of Korea Governor Shin Song says the central bank will implement a flexible monetary policy to combat growing economic uncertainties. In his inaugural address on Tuesday, the new governor emphasized that the domestic economy faces dual pressures of inflation and slowing growth, exacerbated by the Middle East conflict and volatile global oil prices. He outlined 4 core objectives for his 4-year term: stabilizing prices and financial markets, expanding financial monitoring into non-bank sectors, internationalizing the Korean won through a 24-hour foreign exchange market, and taking an active role in national structural reforms. The governor added that the central bank will also push forward with digital currency initiatives, including Project Hangang, to secure a stable next-generation payment infrastructure. Meanwhile, Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi has sent a ritual offering to Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo to coincide with the shrine's annual Spring Festival. Citing an anonymous source, Japan's Kyoto Shimbun newspaper on Tuesday said Takaichi is considering refraining from visiting the shrine in person during the festival period, which runs through April 23rd. Japanese local media say the move appears to be aimed at minimizing diplomatic friction, as a visit by the Prime Minister to the Yasukuni Shrine could spark backlash from South Korea and China. The Yasukuni Shrine commemorates about 2.46 million Japanese war dead, including 14 Class A war criminals convicted by international tribunals for their roles in World War II.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. With the U.S.-Iran ceasefire set to expire, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that Israel has not yet finished its task in Iran, even as a second round of Israel-Lebanon talks is scheduled for Thursday in Washington. Netanyahu made the remarks on Monday during a Memorial Day ceremony in Jerusalem as the United States prepared to resume negotiations in Pakistan. Iran has said that Washington was insisting on unreasonable and unrealistic positions, leaving the next round of talks uncertain. On the Lebanon front, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will host Israeli and Lebanese ambassadors on Thursday for their second face-to-face meeting. Apple announced on Monday that Tim Cook will step down as CEO on September the 1st. Hardware engineering chief John Ternus has been named as his successor. Under Cook's 15-year reign, Apple has grown from a $350 billion company into a $4 trillion global powerhouse. Its annual revenue has nearly quadrupled, and its stock has soared more than 20-fold. Ternus, age 50, is the same age Cook was when he took over from Steve Jobs. He joined Apple in the year 2001 and has driven the development of the Mac, iPad, AirPods, and the recently launched iPhone Air. Tim Cook will move into the role of executive chairman and continue his engaging with policymakers. In Mexico, a gunman on Monday shot dead one tourist and wounded 4 others at Mexico's ancient Teotihuacan pyramids. He then killed himself atop one of the structures. The tourist killed was from Canada. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said she contacted the Canadian embassy directly. 2 of the wounded were Colombian, 1 Canadian, and 1 Russian. The incident comes as Mexico prepares to co-host the 2026 FIFA World Cup, with global scrutiny focused on tourist security. Japan has warned of a heightened risk of a megaquake in the coming days after a magnitude 7.7 earthquake struck off Japan's northeastern coast on Monday afternoon. Officials put the probability of a magnitude 8 or stronger quake at roughly 10 times the normal level for the coming week. Monday's earthquake triggered tsunami warnings and evacuation orders for thousands of coastal residents before authorities downgraded the warning. Tsunami waves of up to 80 centimeters were detected, but no immediate casualties or major damage were reported.
Korea is dealing with the worst dust storm of the spring so far. A surge of dense yellow dust rolled in overnight on cold northwesterly winds, and air quality alerts have been issued across much of the country. And for most regions, conditions will stay very bad throughout the day today. So make sure to have a dust mask when heading outdoors. Wash your hands frequently and drink plenty of water even if you don't feel thirsty. Today has surely brought a dramatic shift in the weather conditions. After recent early summer-like temperatures, some inland regions are under a cold wave advisory, which is the latest to be issued on record. But temperatures will recover nicely this afternoon. For a closer look, Seoul will be getting up to 19 degrees Celsius, but dry weather alerts are being issued in the capital area. Daegu and Gyeongju will make it to 23 degrees Celsius. Well, it looks like no major rain is in the forecast for now, so dust and dry conditions may linger. So please keep the jacket and the mask handy.
Now that's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
The snow is accumulating rapidly. Temperatures are dropping fast, so stay safe out there. Look behind me.
Wow. Oh, this is a bidding. 에너지 들어가 있어요. 우와. 맛봐도 돼요? 네. 와우. 와, 색깔이 조금 노란색이에요. 부드러워요. You see? Beautiful little octopus shape. Yes. Perfect. That suck.
There's a part of me that's letting you go. Some of you all are my favorite. You had to follow me back. Someone told you, songs playing in my head. I'm with you. Celebrate, I've grown up my life. I'm sorry, 'cause I'm so done with you. I try my best, but you said, oh boy, me too. 'Cause I'm so done with you.
here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, April 21st here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Cheska.
Tuesday, everyone.
Happy Tuesday. Also Fabulous with us.
Great to be here.
Great to have you. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're grinding our way into the second day of the work week, and whether you're feeling motivated or just getting back into the rhythm, it's often the little things that keep us going. For some, that might be a strong cup of coffee, but for others, it's a simple phrase or belief they carry with them every day. So today we're diving into something a bit more personal and a bit more reflective. The quotes or life mottos that guide us, inspire us, and sometimes even shape the decisions that we make. So Cheska, what's your, go-to life motto or phrase that you use?
First of all, I love the opening. So as we grind our way through the second day of the week, I hope we can give our viewers a little bit of boost to get through it. There is a lot because I'm sort of a person that actually writes the quotes down. I sort of keep them very close to me. But the first one I would like to share is, quote, "Pressure is privilege."
Ooh, that sounds intense.
It is very intense, yes. And it's used by quite a lot of pro athletes. And this sort of helped me because I think in our modern society, we kind of try to avoid stress and pressure. And there's so many things that are happening in our lives that are out of control, right?
Yes.
And we kind of think, why is this happening to me? You know, why am I so stressed? But if we just take a little bit of step back, the reason we feel pressured, the reason we feel stressed is because we're striving to be better.
Right, that's
and to
true.
be able to feel that pressure, I think is an absolute privilege because we are sort of, you know, destined, or we have given ourselves the opportunity to become better. So in that way, if you just flip, it's a privilege. Yeah.
So I guess in a sense, like if you feel stressed because of the pressure under, there's no need to be stressed about being under pressure, I guess, because it's for something bigger, I guess. Is that what it is?
Exactly, yes. And to be privileged and to be in the position to feel stressed and pressured is sometimes something that maybe some people would have really wanted. It's an opportunity, or it's the kind of pressure that people would have wanted. Yeah.
So I guess it kind of helps you be grateful for being in that situation as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like that. What about you, Fabio?
Well, my first choice is not as thought-provoking or as intellectual, but I would go with YOLO, honestly.
Oh, YOLO. Okay, YOLO.
Bumper sticker.
Yeah, completely. It's more of a lifestyle, but to me, you only live once also reminds me that life is very short and that the actuality of the moment that I'm living in right now holds a lot of power. So that is why I also like another one from Larry Page, one of the original founders from Google. And he said, always deliver more than expected. And this is something that I want to constantly remind myself. Sometimes I forget it. But when you outperform yourself or you do more than the expectation, you usually get very good results. And I think that also motivates you to do better for yourself and to build your future.
I like you have quotes from two different vibes.
Yeah.
They're very different vibes.
One was very professional, very corporate. The other one was more of a lifestyle thing.
Very office-like.
Completely.
I see. So there are so many quotes that inspire us and sometimes even help us get through the day, and that's why we're going to talk more about this. But first, let's take a look at the screen. Self-help books, podcasts, and vlogs have become hugely popular among younger audiences, all centered on one idea: self-improvement. And that trend has evolved into something more, with millennials and Gen Z increasingly turning to the words and wisdom of successful figures for guidance. Today on News Generation, we take a closer look at the rise of viral quotes, how this trend connects to Korean culture, and why the younger generations are embracing even classic sayings in a new way. Just as we saw in the video, self-improvement has become a defining trend among the younger generations, and one way they're doing so is by turning to motivational speeches and quotes. So how are the young people deciding on their favorite quotes or mottos today?
So as you said, I think our generation definitely seemed to place a stronger and heavier emphasis on self-development, quotes, inspirational messages compared to older generations. I think if we call it a trend, I think this is largely due to social media platforms. Because nowadays, it is so easy to see a surge of these motivational, educational, and even inspirational success stories that come up. And I'm even subscribed to a few. I am definitely a consumer of the NZ generation.
You're the target audience.
I'm totally the target audience. Like anything that comes up in my algorithm, I'm clicking. So there are definitely many. But by engaging with this content, I think many young people reflect on their own lives and values and kind of use that process to shape their personal mottos. Because I think there is also this element of people wanting to hold on to something that is a bit more stable. And one of that, I think, is self-development for sure. So relying on achievement-based stories, I think one of the ways that we kind of try to do it. Yeah.
I think it also helps motivate people to get through the day, do something bigger, challenge themselves.
Kind of like grind through a Tuesday.
Exactly, well said.
YOLO.
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 And this shows how self-reflection is really becoming part of everyday life. And it's not just about motivation. It's actually evolving into something a bit deeper. So how is this trend expanding beyond just simple quotes, Fabio?
I would say this passion for quotes really reflects a deeper interest for philosophical ideas. I think these generations are very well prepared to explain who they are and also put into words the world that surrounds them, their environment. So when it comes to this very big figures in the grounds of philosophy, people take a lot of inspiration from them. So we have very popular figures like Confucius or even Friedrich Nietzsche, and even more controversial ones like Sigmund Freud. But either way, since we are so used to digesting a lot of information in a very short time, having something that feels concise is much more effective. So instead of analyzing the whole body of work from these authors, it's more about taking a specific passage or a quote that makes it easier to digest what they really mean. So in the actuality of our moment, of our present, it's very true that we live in a world of uncertainty. So having something that feels grounded and brings us to the past, because if it worked in the past, it also works now, also brings a little bit of stability in a very unstable and kind of ambiguous moment in our lives.
I like what you said about philosophy, because I feel like philosophy is often thought of something that's kind of hard to kind of get into. But I think I was looking at quotes about, ways to be unbothered.
Yes.
And I think it's actually, a lot of it originated after researching a bit. Stoicism is like a type of philosophy that really kind of is about that. So I think it has really become a gateway into this.
And actually in Korea, the book about Stoicism was a bestseller. So it kind of also reflects the cultural sort of trend that a lot of millennials and Gen Z are feeling at the moment.
Because a lot of people in Korea do want to feel a bit unbothered.
Very unbothered.
So you should get me into that, honestly. I would love that.
Look into that as well.
I also got to learn a little bit about absurdism, that whole philosophy, that part of philosophy, thanks to quotes that I searched on the internet.
So this is so interesting, like what leads to what other stuff. So what are some iconic quotes that people are still talking about, I guess?
So one of the ways that I think Korean could kind of show this kind of entrepreneurial spirit, we go back to the conglomerate Hyundai Group's founder, Ko Jung-young. And he is known for saying that almost as a reflex when someone questioned or doubted business challenges, he would say, quote, "Hey mate, have you even tried?" in Korea. 해보긴 했어? And I think this is the iconic spirit of Korea's first generation pioneers and leaders in business, because if you remember, after the Korean War, when the country had almost no industrial base or resources, he helped build an entire industry from the ground up. Started with shipbuilding, now we know cars, right? Hyundai cars, automobiles, and heavy industry. So when Hyundai first started, it was nothing like what we know today. And there's a very famous story that goes that he went to the UK to secure investment fund despite not having any shipbuilding experience. So what does he do? He pulls out a 16th century Kobusan, the turtle ship.
Wow.
That
legendary ship, yeah.
Yeah, that Korea built to fight Japan as an evidence that perhaps we did have the DNA to build the ship.
So he was also inspired as well.
Actually,
by a
you're
quote.
right.
Yeah.
He was inspired by the quotes and the motivational act of Lee Sun-shin. And this bold move actually worked. So whenever someone doubted him, he would pull out and say, "Did you even try?" So it's more than a quote, it's a mindset, it's a belief, and sort of force that made Korea what it is. So a lot of Koreans sort of respect and admire him. Yeah, in that way.
So this captures a bold, kind of can-do spirit of early Korean entrepreneurship. And similar ideas can also be found from global figures as well. So what's a famous quote from an international figure, Fabio?
Well, I'm so happy Cheska talked about Korean figures, because I'm not that very well versed in that area.
But you learned something today.
I learned something today, yes. When it comes to overseas figures, we have, for example, the the former Apple CEO Steve Jobs, who famously said, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." And I think it carries a similar meaning. Not settling for the status quo, but rather striving for something new and trying to learn with a very humble mindset. This was popularized after he said it at the Stanford commencement speech that he did, and it really exemplifies his entrepreneurial spirit. He dropped out of college, actually, studying philosophy, but through relentless effort, he ended up constituting the whole thing that we know as Apple today, and even launching very big and successful product lines like the iPod series. And another example you can mention is Nike or Nike, since they have a very popular slogan that is "just do it." And it might seem a little bit absurd or very obvious, but the simplicity of it is quite motivational because you can pretty much apply it to every single situation in your life. But if we're looking into something more deep or inspirational, even pessimistic, I would say, "I have no mouth and I must scream." This is from Harlan Ellison, an American author who wrote a very short science fiction story about how technology could influence our future. But what I like about this sentence and why a lot of my friends also like it, it's because it can tell a lot and a lot of people can resonate through it even if they haven't read the story. So the story goes on about how AI takes over the world and it torments people, but it also signifies internal struggle. And you can, pretty much relate to it on a deeper level, depending on what you experience in your life.
So we're talking about quotes from international figures as well, but also this is obviously reciting quotes is obviously very popular in Korea. So how is this, I guess, related to Korean culture in any way?
That's a very good question, because I think for Korea, it's not so much a trend, but I think it can be seen almost as a tradition. And interestingly enough, because for centuries, Confucian teaching sort of shaped how people learned, and by that they learned through short, memorable phrases about morality, respect, and self-discipline. So wisdom was sort of meant to be carried in a single line, something you could repeat over and over, and most importantly, you had to reflect it and also execute it in your own life and live through it, because a lot of Confucian teaching strongly emphasized applying the teaching to real life. So I guess it couldn't be too long, and it had to be motivational and short enough to be a reminder on a constant daily basis, like YOLO. So also Korean culture is founded upon a very strong collective mindset. So a group moving towards a same goal, shared goal. And in that kind of environment, I think short, powerful saying becomes a direction point, kind of like a North Star for the group to move forward. So in schools and families, it is not uncommon here in Korea to see like a creed, slogan, or a motto that kind of the group follows.
This kind of reminds me of, in Korea, there's like four character phrases that people use. Like, for example, like it's called 사자성어, right? And there's one like, for example, 소탐대실. And then when you try to go for something that's small, you end up losing the bigger picture. So I think maybe that's why that is popular.
Exactly. Like even that had to be in only four characters. That had to be very short. So
I guess Korea does have a lot of sayings that people tend to. It has such a long history as well. So that kind of explains that.
That makes sense.
But why are the younger people drawn to such old classic quotes? Like I am, I guess.
Yeah, Fabio kind of talked about it, and then I just talked about it as well. But for today's generation, these quotes aren't just inspirational. I think there are sort of ways to borrow clarity when the future feels very unclear. And we're living through an era where everything is so rapidly shifting. Technology is advancing in an unprecedented speed. AI, energy, climate, the industries are appearing and disappearing in real time, and people are trying to figure out where they actually fit. So it is only natural that many young people look for something to hold on to. And this is coming from past leaders, entrepreneurs, because these are people who sort of navigated uncertainties and built an empire out of nothing. So they made decisions in the midst of chaos and struggle. And while they, as human beings, may not be completely, quote, perfect, I think it's more their legacy that sort of is a slice of evidence, sort of a proof that their mindset and decision led to something. So young people kind of use those quotes and speeches almost like a guiding post, because now we're just traversing through a time of uncertainty, and they kind of become like these little mark points to say, okay, maybe I should try this. Okay, maybe I should try this.
Right, so people often look to proven paths in uncertain times, and the way these messages are consumed also plays a role. So why else do, I guess, short, powerful quotes appeal to the younger generation so much these days, Fabio?
It's a bit funny, but it might be because of the short attention span.
That is is so true with shorts. We're in an era of shorts.
I mean, we can say it on content. Even in social media, short form content is pretty much at the top of the game. It's the protagonist and everything, because delivering a short message in a concise but powerful way is the most important thing. And that comes from a shift in mindset. Instead of savoring and enjoying the little things in life and doing things in a consistent way, it's more about something that feels more powerful, more impactful, and stimulating. And again, uncertainty also becomes an issue. So when it comes to quotes from the past, something that feels grounded and that stood the test of time will always work.
That is very true. So there's a lot of things that we can turn to as well, and it's almost like a fast-moving, uncertain world. People are searching for something short, steady, and timeless to hold on to. And to get a more personal perspective on this trend, we're going to speak with a young person who enjoys collecting motivational quotes. And that conversation will take place right after break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Becky Lee from Korea, Gen Z who loves collecting meaningful quotes from books, films, and beyond. So hello, Becky. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hi, hello. I'm Becky Lee from Yonsei University.
All right, Becky. So what is your favorite quote and why is that your favorite?
I love the quote, "Was it life breaking again?" from the book Also Spread Zarathustra. And I think this is the famous book. And the quote means we need to have a courage to live on. Like sometimes I feel that life is picking on me, but sometimes I feel like life is a great gift. So I always hope I don't overact and live my life calmly when it's bad and resolutely when it's good. And this could give me a courage to living like that. And that's why I choose the quote for today's interview.
I love how you said how sometimes you feel like life is picking on you. I think a lot of us can relate to that. So Becky, why do you think young people are so drawn to quotes and sayings?
Because they serve as compasses or a blueprint when they go past the problematic time. Like quotes from books are usually written by someone who lived before me, like my mom and my dad, or the adults from before me. And also, it's not only story, but also a sort of advice from them. And I think people are pretty much the same everywhere, every era. Like most people think in a very similar way. And that's why centuries-old proverbs still resonate with us all. And I think the problems we face today are probably those the previous generations have felt and experienced in similar way already. And so I think the quotes advise on the problems that they have been experiencing, and that's why attractive us and resonate us all, like the young people like us.
And how has your favorite quote influenced your life?
I think about it, and actually it can't change my life in dramatic way. Like it gives me a courage, but it can't make me, oh yes, maybe I can this in this day. It can't make me like this. But I'm sure the quote gave me a courage at the time that I have to make an important decisions for my life. Like, do I have to take a test in this age, or do I have to make an exchange student at this time? Like, it can feel really important thing in my age, and like the quote can give me an encouragement to make an important decisions like that. And also sometimes when I feel so helpless myself, the quote helped me get out of those helpless times.
I thank you so much for that really real take on quotes. And also I like what you said about how quotes, one of the great things about quotes is that they really do stand the test of time. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today, Becky.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So we just heard from a Gen Z who is inspired by quotes, what her favorite quote is, why she thinks her peers are into quotes, and how quotes influence her life. But this trend doesn't seem to stop at borders. So do Gen Zs in other countries also love quotes these days, Fabio?
Well, yes, hashtags like motivational quotes and also hopecore are very popular overseas too in platforms like Pinterest or Instagram for both Gen Zers and millennials. And also TED Talks and podcasts are a way of substituting these long lectures and giving this thought-provoking ideas to the audience in a more concise and direct way, almost a little bit more intimate, I would say. And then Spanish Gen Zers also love quotes since we also analyze them and study them in school. But I think it also comes from a philosophy and a state of mind that comes with culture, which is about living in the moment and enjoying small things in life. So that might come from the Latin saying carpe diem, which means live in the moment. And when you look at the lexicon in the Spanish language, there's so many expressions that actually point out to that. For example, todo pasa, which means everything passes, or vive el momento, which means live the moment. And there's so many much more like that that are used very frequently.
This is also inspiring me to look at quotes from in different languages as well.
Because it sounds better in the ears.
Also,
el momento.
Very true. And also the real question is the impact of these quotes. So Cheska, I also asked this to our Zoom guest earlier, but how has your favorite quote shaped your life?
I just want to end with a very short quote, and it's, find a pattern among your everyday happy little accidents, and you will find your destiny.
I love that, actually.
So this kind of sums up our interview. We talked about it. Sometimes life feels like it's picking on you. Sometimes life feels unfair.
More often than not.
More often than not, right? And we think about, when is my moment going to happen? When is the next opportunity going to come? When is this person going to arrive? But if you really carefully look at the happy little accidents that are happening in your daily life and pay attention to how you react to things, how you meet people, how you try to see the world, how you try to fight things even when it's hard, then all those little accidents seem to lead to a destiny, and it's all a pattern that comes to a certain result. So for that, it makes me help sort of intentionally and purposefully live everyday life, because you never know when the next destiny is just around the corner.
Right. I think also, like you said, quotes really do help you if you're going through something. It helps you kind of get back on your get back standing and stuff. So it is really helpful.
It makes you happier.
It does. It does. Like for me, like there's a quote from The Office, is one of my favorite shows, and there's a quote where Ryan, one of the characters, he says, "I want to be led when I want people to lead me when I want to be led." So kind of if you're in a situation, it kind of makes you laugh things off a bit.
Yes.
Right. Light and smooth. So what about you, Fabio?
Well, first of all, I like what Cheska said, because I think a lot of young people relate to that in the sense that most of the good things that come to you come unexpectedly. And a lot of people joke about how you want the pasta to cook fast, so you just act like you're not looking at the pasta, and it just happens.
Ooh, I like
or
that.
with love too, you act like you're not looking for a relationship, and then that's when something happens.
Sometimes the best things happen when you're not actually actively going for it.
Exactly. But one that I really like is realize deeply that the present moment is all you have. This is by Eckhart Tolle. And I really gravitate towards these quotes that bring me that sense of presence, because being aware that I'm living right now is sometimes something that I take for granted. But if I die tomorrow and I was brought back to life, I would like to think of life as a gift, and the opportunity of doing whatever I want feels very powerful. And sometimes I need to remind myself of that.
That's very well said. So from timeless wisdom to viral one-liners, quotes continue to shape how we think, act, and find meaning. So whether in Korea or across the globe, they offer a comfort, clarity, and sometimes just a push that we need. And who knows, your next favorite quote might just change the way you see everything. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. And a big thanks to Cheska.
YOLO, everyone.
And also Fabio.
Having me was a gift.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this will inspire you to find your own main character quote. We are News Generation.